She didn't knock. She didn't need to. Her voice rang out clear across my yard, like a bad ringtone you can't turn off. "Oh, wow," she said, standing at the end of my walkway, sunglasses perched on her head like a tiara. "This place is charming, in a haunted kind of way." I was kneeling in the front garden, trimming the lavender bush that had survived more winters than she'd probably spent in this town. I looked up. There she was, heels sunk slightly into the dirt, manicured nails, gripping a tumbler of iced matcha, like it was some status symbol. Monica Langston, my new neighbor, realtor influencer, and self-proclaimed lifestyle guru. She had moved into the 2-story remodel across the street 6 months ago. And ever since then, my life had felt like a never-ending episode of some HGTV humiliation show. "Hello, Monica," I said, wiping my hands on my jeans. "How can I help you?" She smiled with the kind of pity people save for stray animals. "I was just passing by and thought maybe I could recommend someone to help you with the porch. It's practically peeling off." I glanced back at the paint on my front steps. It was in fact peeling, but it had character like the rest of this old house. "No need," I said. "It's lasted longer than most marriages around here." Monica let out a little laugh. "Right. Well, I just think curb appeal is everything, you know. It's about creating value, presence, power." And there it was. The subtext in her words hit like a brick wrapped in a smile. You have no value, no presence, no power. Just an old widow in an old house, clinging to a past no one cared about anymore. Monica loved to remind me of that. She threw lavish parties every month, string lights, champagne flutes, catered charcuterie boards. Her guests would park their shiny cars along my faded fence. The music would spill over into my living room, and someone would always make a comment like, "Can't believe she still lives here." She, of course, being me. I never complained. Not once. I kept my head down, paid my property taxes, fixed my own sink when it leaked, and made my garden bloom. That was enough for me. Until the day it wasn't. It started with a whisper and a smirk. I stepped outside to get the mail. Monica and her latest friend, some tall man, with slicked back hair and a Bluetooth earpiece, were standing on her front steps. She motioned toward my house like a museum guide describing ancient ruins. "She's lived here since the 80s. Can you believe that?" she said loud enough for me to hear. "It's basically a time capsule. Probably smells like mothballs and regrets inside." They laughed. I didn't. That night, I stood in my kitchen and stared at the ceiling. It wasn't the first time someone had mocked my house. My family had grown up here. My husband and I laid every tile in the kitchen ourselves. The living room still held the imprint of our favorite couch, the one he used to fall asleep on during football season. This house had witnessed births, birthdays, and heartbreak. It was me. And suddenly I realized she wasn't mocking a building. She was mocking me. Weeks later, I saw the sign. A notice tacked to Monica's door, barely visible from the street. I had to squint through the blinds. Foreclosure notice. Property to be auctioned. I read it twice, then 3 times. And something in something that had lain dormant for years woke up. That's how I ended up sitting in a folding chair in the back row of a county courthouse annex, 2 months later, clutching a cashier's check and listening as Monica's dream house was called up for auction. She didn't show. I guess she thought no one she knew would be there. But I was. When the gavel came down, the room clapped once. Just once. The auctioneer looked up. "Congratulations, Mom." I stood, walked to the table, signed the papers, and said calmly, "I guess haunted houses still hold value, don't they?" I used to think there was something noble in being underestimated. Stay quiet. Do your work. Let the world spin its wheels while you grow roots so deep that no storm could touch you. But even the deepest roots can rot if you let enough poison seep in. And Monica, she was pure poison. The first time we met, she knocked on my door, holding a basket wrapped in plastic and ribbons. Organic figs and goat cheese, she'd said, smiling like a magazine ad. Just a little welcome gift. You know, from someone who appreciates real estate value. That last part felt pointed. Still, I'd thanked her, invited her in, poured her sweet tea, and offered her a slice of the blueberry pie cooling on the counter. She took one bite and coughed. "Oh," she said, "it's very nostalgic." That was her favorite word when something didn't meet her standards. My curtains were nostalgic. My wallpaper was quaint. My sofa passed down from my sister was so retro it's almost campy. But I didn't take the bait. I smiled, offered seconds, and watched her pick through the crust with a cocktail fork she had somehow pulled from her handbag. As the months passed, Monica's comments got bolder. When I hosted the church ladies for book club, she'd conveniently walk her designer dog past the window and wave eyes scanning my mismatched teacups. When my lawnmower gave out and I had to trim the yard with garden shears, she posted a picture from across the street with the caption, "Some people say they love their homes. Some people just say it." She didn't tag me. She didn't have to. Then there was the dinner party. It was her third one that month. Her backyard was lit like a vineyard in Tuscany, at least how Tuscany might look in a catalog. I watched from my porch, sipping coffee and minding my own business, when the laughter got too loud to ignore. Someone clinked a glass. "Let's toast to Monica for rescuing this neighborhood from going full antique, more laughter." Monica chimed in, "I am just doing my part. This block needed a little glow up." And then the dagger. I mean, it's not like everyone wants to live next to a time capsule. But hey, at least it's educational. I heard my name in their chuckles, even if they didn't say it out loud. That night, I dug out the blueprints to my house. Hand-drawn by my husband and me, 39 years ago. We built this place when we had nothing but love and calloused hands. Every corner had a story, every creaky floorboard a memory. It wasn't just wood and paint, it was home. And suddenly, I saw it through new eyes, not as Monica's punchline, but as my proof. Proof that love builds things money can't buy. But something had shifted in me. Not bitterness, not revenge, resolve. I started making changes not to impress her, but to remind myself of what this house still could be. I painted the front porch myself. I sanded and stained the banister my husband once slid down pretending to be 20 again. I planted hydrangeas along the walkway, my mother's favorite. Neighbors noticed. One of them left a note. "Your home is the soul of this street." I pinned it to the fridge. Monica, of course, noticed too. She made a point of parking her new Audi at an angle that blocked part of my driveway. When I asked if she could adjust it, she laughed. "Sure, as soon as you fix that crooked mailbox, it's killing the vibe." But behind her perfect life, things weren't so perfect. Little signs appeared. Real estate flyers stacked in her recycling bin. A delivery guy asking me to sign for furniture returns. Her mood changed, 2 shorter smiles, rushed greetings, stress lines around her mouth. And then, one day, while I was watering the hydrangeas, I saw her crying in her car. She didn't notice me, but I noticed her. A week later, the for sale sign went up. It vanished 3 days after that. Then came the foreclosure notice. I asked a friend who worked at the title office. "Over-leveraged," she whispered. "Big mortgage balloon payments, bad timing." The auction date was set, and just like that, Monica's glow-up dream house became public property. I wrestled with myself. Should I do it? Was it petty? Was it wrong? I thought about it for days. Then I remembered the blueberry pie, the porch, the caption, the time capsule, and most of all, I remembered that I had spent months rebuilding myself, not just my house. This wasn't revenge. It was redemption. And I had the means to do it, thanks to years of quiet saving, small side businesses, and selling vintage linens on Etsy. Who knew my mother's tablecloths would go viral? I called the auction house, registered as a bidder, and waited. The auction wasn't glamorous. No champagne flutes, no velvet ropes, just a stale-smelling municipal annex building with flickering fluorescent lights and a front row of folding chairs that creaked whenever someone shifted. I sat in the second row, wearing my plain blue cardigan and holding a cashier's check in a zippered envelope. Around me were 5 or 6 others, mostly men in polos and khakis, clipboard types, who talked in acronyms and ROI. No one gave me a second glance. Just a quiet woman in her 60s, probably there by mistake. Perfect. The property was listed as Lot, Dr. 14, 308-9, Willow Glen Drive. I didn't need the address to know what it was. I could picture the marble countertops, the double oven. Monica bragged about the wine fridge stocked with Rose from Napa. She never actually drank, but loved to show off. The auctioneer began with the terms 10% down today balance, due in 15 days is his condition. Then came the opening bid, $240,000. Silence. Clipboard man, Narc 1, raised his paddle. $240. Then clipboard man, Narc 2, $250. It went back and forth, quickly rising like tension in a soap opera. $60, $270, $280. I stayed quiet. At $300, one bidder dropped out. At $315, the other hesitated. That was my cue. I raised my paddle for the first time. $320, I said clearly. Heads turned. Even the auctioneer blinked. He pointed. $320,000 from bidder number 17. Clipboard man number 2 grimaced. $325. I waited 2 beats, then said $340. That did it. He dropped his paddle and muttered something under his breath. All right, $340 to the lady in blue. Going once, going twice. The gavel hit the table. Sold. Just like that, it was mine. I walked to the front to finalize paperwork. As I signed the documents, the clerk smiled. First investment, I looked up at her. No, I said. This one's personal. That night, I didn't sleep. Not from excitement. Not from nerves. From release. I sat on my porch with a cup of peppermint tea, staring across the street at the darkened windows of Monica's house. Correction, my house. I didn't know if she still lived there. The notice said she had 30 days to vacate after the auction, but she hadn't been seen in over a week. A moving truck came the next morning. She didn't even say goodbye. Part of me expected a message, an email, a handwritten note maybe. Nothing. But then came the knock. 3 days later. I opened the door. There she was, hair pulled back in a low ponytail. No designer sunglasses, no heels, just jeans and a sweatshirt that said ironically, manifesting good vibes. For the first time since I'd met her, Monica looked human. She held an envelope. I wanted to give you this, she said quietly. It has the key fobs, garage opener, pool remote. I took it but didn't speak. She didn't make eye contact. I guess you know by now that things weren't as perfect as they looked. Still, I said nothing. She glanced toward her old home, now mine. You were the last person I expected to buy it. That's funny, I said. You were the first person I expected to lose it. She flinched. Then, so what are you going to do with it? Flip it, rent it, bulldoze it? I shook my head. I'm going to clean it, I said. Scrub it top to bottom. Burn sage in every room. Then maybe you'll plant a few flowers. Hydrangeas, probably. She looked confused. I stepped forward, still holding the envelope between us. And then, going to make it kind, Monica. Because no one who ever lived in that house knew what kindness felt like. Silence. Then, you bought it just to spite me, didn't you? I took a deep breath. No, I said. I bought it to reclaim the part of myself that stopped believing I deserved better. She left without saying goodbye. That time, I didn't watch her go. I went inside and opened the doors to my new home. It was bigger than I needed, flashier than my taste. But as I walked through the halls, I imagined family gatherings, Sunday suppers, grandkids on the staircase. And in the kitchen, I found something that nearly brought me to tears. Tucked behind the spice rack, a stained copy of my blueberry pie recipe, my handwriting, my name in the corner. I stood there in silence. Then I laughed, because even behind all that mockery, part of her had kept it. Maybe she didn't hate everything about me after all. I thought buying the house would be the end of the story, that I'd turn the key step through the door and feel victorious, like every wound Monica ever left on my pride had been stitched shut with one bold move. But that's not how healing works. The house was mine now, yes, but it still felt like hers. The walls remembered her voice. The air still smelled faintly of eucalyptus candles and mockery. The backyard lights were still strung in perfect rows, like soldiers on parade ordered, polished and soulless. I stood in the center of the grand living room floors, so shiny they reflected the ceiling fan, and whispered to myself, now what? The first thing I did was open the windows. Every single one. Let the wind in, let her out. Then I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. I started with the kitchen. She had installed a marble island the size of a small car. Sleek, cold, uninviting. I covered it in a faded gingham cloth from my old linen chest and placed a bowl of peaches in the center. Fresh, imperfect, real. I found her wine fridge unplugged and the pantry still filled with expensive bottles she never opened. I donated them all to the community center's charity auction. Let someone else toast to artificial status. I replaced her sterile gray curtains with floral ones I'd sewn myself, swapped her high-end hands-free faucet with the classic bronze tap I'd used for 30 years. People thought I was crazy. Why downgrade, they asked. But to me, it wasn't a downgrade. It was a reclaiming of warmth, of welcome, of me. Word got around the neighborhood fast. The gossip wasn't men just curious. Did she really buy it at auction? She's living there now? Was it revenge or renovation? But I didn't explain myself, not to anyone, because it was never about revenge. It was about being seen again. Then one Saturday afternoon, while I was out front planting marigolds under the mailbox, a small gray sedan pulled up. It was Monica. She stepped out slowly, holding a brown envelope dressed simply in slacks and a soft blue blouse. She looked older, like someone who hadn't slept well in months. I didn't stand up, just kept digging. "Hi," she said quietly. I nodded but didn't speak. "I just came to drop something off. I found it when I was packing the last of my boxes. I thought you should have it." She handed me the envelope. Then, unexpectedly, she sat down on the edge of the flower bed, carefully, like a woman unaccustomed to dirt. "I didn't mean for things to get so ugly," she said. "When I moved in, I just wanted to prove something." I looked at her. "To who?" I asked. She shrugged. "To everyone, to myself." She reached down and plucked a weed absently from the grass. "My mom was never proud of anything I did, unless it came with a price tag. I think I started measuring everything that way value worth people." She looked at me then. "I'm sorry I made you feel small." There it was. The thing I never thought I'd hear. Not wrapped in a fake smile or a social media caption just spoken plainly in the dirt, with sunburn on her nose. I didn't say I forgave her, but I handed her a bottle of cold water and said, "Help me finish this row." We worked in silence, side by side. Two women with more in common than either wanted to admit. When we finished, she stood dusted off her knees and said, "You made this house feel like it matters again." I looked at the porch, the new shutters, the hand-painted sign that now hung above the door, "Welcome always." "It always did," I said. "Just needed someone to believe in it." She smiled small genuine and walked back to her car. That night, I opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph, not of the house, of me. Monica had taken it at last year's neighborhood BBQ, the one I didn't know she attended. I was laughing mid-conversation, holding a tray of lemon bars. On the back shed, written, "You were always more home than I'll ever be." I put the photo on the fridge, right next to the note from the neighbor that said my house was the soul of the street. I stood in my kitchen barefoot, the scent of cinnamon rolls wafting through the air, and smiled. Because finally, after all the noise, the hurt, the auctions, and insults, I felt like I was home. The house is quiet now. Not empty, just peaceful. The kind of quiet that lets your heart settle like a warm quilt over an old wound. I sit on the front porch most mornings, coffee in hand, watching the light hit the hydrangeas just right. They're blooming strong this year, blue and bold, like they've been waiting for someone to see them. Maybe in a way I was too. It's been 3 months since the auction. Monica moved out of town. I hear she's renting a small place near her sister. Someone said she's in therapy. Someone else said she's writing a blog about starting over. I don't know if it's true, and honestly, I don't need to. We don't speak, but I kept the photo she gave me. It's still on the fridge, next to a new sticky note from my grandson Grandma's house, smells like cookies and hugs. That I think is the legacy I'd rather have. James visited last weekend. He walked through the house slowly, as if he didn't recognize it. "This is different," he said. "It's mine," I replied. Not in a possessive way, just true. He helped me hang string lights on the back patio and asked if I ever regretted it. Buying the house. going through all of this. I looked at the soft glow of the porch light, the fresh paint, the warm wood under my bare feet. Not once I told him, I didn't buy this house to prove a point. I bought it because I finally realized I didn't need to stay small just to make others comfortable. He nodded quietly. Mom, he said, I'm proud of you. I swallowed hard at that. Not because I needed it, but because I didn't. Life these days is simple, but not small. I've started hosting Sunday suppers again. Nothing fancy, just casseroles, biscuits, laughter. The neighbors come. They bring pie. They bring stories. And they bring respect. Not because I demanded it, but because I reclaimed it. With every brush stroke on this house, with every weed pulled, with every room I filled with warmth instead of worthlessness, I told the world and myself I matter. Has anyone ever made you feel like you weren't enough because of where you lived, what you wore, or how you lived your life? Have you ever had to reclaim your voice without raising it? Share your story in the comments. Because quiet strength, that's the kind that changes everything.